conclusion goes against their theory. Simply, there's no other explanation. And but it was she was a very young woman at that time, just educated, finished education, and just got this job at the U.S. Geological Survey, and that was her last job as a geologist. After that, she couldn't get any jobs. Here's her email address if you want to write to her.
She's still alive?
I mean, latest I haven't heard that she passed away. So, I don't know. Here's another example. This is very close to here, Schöningen. That's actually very close to the Danish border in northern Germany. And in the 1997, in some excavations, I found again implements. Amongst other, they find javelins or lances, swords, not swords, but spears, which they dated to something like, let me just see if I have it right, otherwise the figure comes up here, something like, was it 600,000 years? 600,000 years. And so that was not controversial, but then of course, then the question came, who made these spear points that we found here? And since there were no Homo sapiens in Europe at that time, then it must have been Homo erectus, whom you see a model of here. He must have made these spear points. Of course, that was a little unusual, because before that they had not thought that Homo erectus could make such advanced implements. Homo erectus generally, they thought he had maybe somewhat was using fire and some simple stone tools mainly, and he would break some stones and use some sharp edges and like that, but not, really deliberately work and make advanced stone tools or tools in general. Generally, they thought that Homo erectus was not able to do that, but now they concluded actually Homo erectus was able to make these spear points, because there cannot have been Homo sapiens in Europe at that time, 600,000 years ago. So and that was in 1997. It was published in Nature. But of course, there might be another explanation. There might actually have been Homo sapiens in Europe at that time, because if we go back and look in the literature, archaeological literature, there are actually some findings of Homo sapiens around that age, done by this French gentleman Boucher Pert in the 1800s. He was actually one of the leading archaeologists of the 1800s. He was involved in the Cro-Magnon findings, very, very big archaeologist. But also he found at a place called Molet-de-Quignon some human jaw and also some other bones, human bones, anatomic human bones, which actually were like 600,000 years old. He found this is a human jaw. I don't know if you know that, but that's what the jaw that we all have looks like that. In here is a drawing of where they were found. They were found in this layer here, and that is dated, if I'm right, again to 600,000 years old. So it might be actually that there were Homo sapiens. We have some evidence of Homo sapiens from that time in Europe. This is France, and of course his discovery caused a lot of controversy, and ultimately it was somewhat rejected, and he was also marginalized. After that, many scientists didn't want to take him serious anymore, and actually he was so challenged or offended by the whole treatment, so he went back to the place and continued excavating. Actually found something like 100 bones more, human bones, and they were all dated from that time. But that time nobody didn't want even give him any attention to him anymore. But actually he continued excavating, and there was more discoveries like that. Here's a character from a lot of discussion about this human jaw found by Boucher-de-Pere. Yeah, and again the same.
How did they date back then?
They didn't date exactly. They were not. But they were dating, geologically dating. They have names. I don't know if you're aware of the names for geological ages. Right now, you were living in the Holocene, and before that started 10,000 years ago. Before that, you had the Pleistocene, which goes back like to 1 million. Actually, back to 2 million years back, and that is divided into many sub-periods. Before that, you had the Pliocene, which is now dated from 2 to 5 million years back. Now these years, that's a later development. In those days, they had these geological ages given, and they had some discussion of how old they were, but they had no exact way of measuring it. Later on, they developed, different ways. Carbon dating is one, and many other ways of more exact dating. But there's no question about that these discoveries were very old, and for most scientists, unacceptable old. So, here's a reference where these discoveries were discussed in 1864. And Karma himself, he in 2002 presented a paper on Boucher-de-Pere's later discoveries at Lalitanatha Prabhu. So, now if we go to another fairly recent discovery also here we have to go to Indonesia, to the island of Flores. You been there?
No.
You know where it is?
Yeah.
It's a big island, isn't it?
It's a big island. And they look like the aboriginals.
Okay. Maybe. So at Flores, also was in 1998 or something like that. Also fairly recent in the 1990s, they found stone implements, as you see here. Again, they are also evidence of what normally is considered quite advanced stonework you find here. So they were dated something like 800,000 years back. So then again the question came: who made these stone implements? Who lived on these on Flores? And here's a sketch over where the discovery was done. One can say something about the dating here. It was discussed in 1998 in Nature. It was published in Nature in 1998. So who made these? Again, must have been Homo erectus who have left these, but because there were no Homo sapiens 800,000 years anywhere on this planet, so it must have been Homo erectus. Now this raised one problem, because again, if you look here at Flores, one particular thing about Flores is that it is an island. What does island mean? It means it's surrounded by ocean. That's the definition of an island. Furthermore, it has been an island for millions of years. Of course, the ocean has raised 100 to 200 meters from what it was, for example, like 20,000 years ago. But Flores, nevertheless, has been an island for millions of years. So how did Homo erectus get to Flores? The account said it's very simple. He built a ship and went there, which is unusual claim again, because building ships is again symptom of very advanced human ability. And until that point, actually, they actually assumed that the first evidence of shipbuilding was by those who actually went to Australia across, from the, sailed to Australia probably across many of the small Pacific islands and like that. And that's about 60,000 years back, Homo sapiens. And again, the idea that Homo erectus was able to build ships, no one had considered that. But now they concluded he must have had that ability, because there was no Homo sapiens at that time. Now, of course, there's another point here, which is interesting, that maybe there were actually Homo sapiens at that time, because there's evidence that there were Homo sapiens living in what is now known as Indonesia 800,000 years ago. In particular, if you go to Java, Java is a little further west. You can see also Java there, and Java was found in the end of the 1800s. Some very now famous discoveries were made there of what became known as the Java Man. Have you heard about the Java Man? No, have you?
I heard about it, but I don't know.
Okay, so it was a discovery. It was first of all this skull cap, top of a head, or top of a head, found in 1891, and then a thigh bone. This is, from a thigh. This is what a human thigh bone looks like. The year after was found there, and the scientist Eugene Dubois, who made this discovery, he claimed they came from the same individual. So there you had like a modern human thigh bone and a primitive. This skull is from more like an ape-like creature. It's not a human skull. It's an ape-like creature. So then it came out that this is from the same individual, and that was actually the birth of the Homo erectus species. That was the first time that they've classified it being like that, and it became like very famous, because before that actually they were looking for the intermediate between apes and humans, and they hadn't found any, but now they had found him, and he was 800,000 years old, and very influential discovery. And the Java Man was born along with that. That Java Man is supposed to be in Homo erectus. And then if we go up through the 20th century, more discoveries are found of Homo erectus, found in Africa, found in Europe, found in China. And it turns out that all the other discoveries of Homo erectus, their thigh bones are not like the thigh bone that was found at Java. They have more distinctly monkey, ape-like thigh bones, not human thigh bones. And ultimately, scientists have concluded, this is from two scientists, M.H. Day and Mollison, in 1973. This is a paper where they conclude actually that these thigh bone, the Java and the skull cap, do not belong to the same individual. Cannot be. The thigh bone is simply too different from all the other thigh bones that they have found. So actually, Java Man is no more. The original discovery is no longer accepted amongst the findings of Homo erectus. Of course, that makes an interesting point that who has left that thigh bone. And for all we know, the only being leaving thigh bones that look like modern humans' thigh bones are modern humans. And and the conclusion seems very obvious. There were modern humans at Java 800,000 years ago, and it might have been them who actually built boats, ships, and sailed to Flores, and the evidence found in Flores are remnants from these humans. I mean, the evidence definitely lends itself to that interpretation. And because also, I mean, here this is a drawing of the original findings, the site where the skull and the thigh bone were found. And here is a skull, here is a thigh bone. They're found in the same layer, but actually there were dozens of other bones from all other kinds of animals and so on. It's on the riverbank, and they were actually separated by like 15 meters. So there's no real strong reason why they should be accepted as belonging to the same individual. Again, it was more like one scientist wishful thinking. He decided to find it, and therefore he just put these two together. But really, the evidence it's not a strong case it came from the same individual anyway. So there's strong evidence, it seems like actually they were Homo sapiens at Java 800,000 years ago. Yeah. Okay, so actually this is our place. This should have been there before. Then it's funny when you talk about who built the ships. Here's a little our place. So next example we're going to look at is in Argentina. We have here a finding. It was actually found in the harbor in Buenos Aires when they were building a dock in Buenos Aires, and part of the harbor, the river, La Plata River, was dried up. And there they found this skull, which is a Homo sapiens skull, like our skull. It was found 15 meters down below the surface, below the dried surface. It was found under, in particular, a layer of unbroken, what's called Tosca. This is a calcium, a limestone layer. Under that, which is a very hard layer, under that unbroken, then they found this particular skull, and in a formation which is 1.5 million years old. So when was that? In 1800. It was discovered actually by some laborers who were working in the harbor, but it was investigated by Florentina Ameghino, at that time a famous Argentinian geologist and archaeologist. And he there seems to be no doubt about it. It was found like that. It was found in that strata which they claimed, and it's discussed here in 1909. Okay, it's the beginning of the 20th century. And again, of course, that caused an awful lot of controversy, because there's not supposed to have been modern humans in Argentina 1.5 million years ago. Ameghino was somewhat ridiculed and again marginalized and like that, but it was discovered there, there's no doubt. It seems like. So in 1999, Drew de Kramer presented a paper on this particular finding in South Africa, an archaeological conference there. And we'll get back to more discoveries in Argentina, a couple of decades, or actually a decade later. But for now, we will have a look at another finding, the foxhole jaw, which is, again, here's a modern human jaw, which was found in Foxhole in England, near Ipswich. You have Ipswich up here, Foxhole is up in that area. And it was found in, I think it's 1855, before Darwin published his book. And and it was found in the layer called the red crack. You see the yellow layer, which is something between 1.5 to 2 million years old. It was found by some laborers, but then a doctor, at the local pub they came and said, we found this, and there was a doctor who study something to actually, so this is really special. So he bought it for a beer, and he had it in his custody. And scientists started studying this skull and discussing it. And even though it was found by laborers, there seems to be no doubt about actually it was found in the red crack. So there is a report of that finding of the foxhole jaw. Later on it disappeared. It doesn't, I mean, no one knows where it is anymore. But it is reported in the scientific literatures and journals and like that, and the drawings and all that. And but later on, I mean, this foxhole jaw is from 1855, as I said. But then in the 1920s and 1930s, this particular scientist, Gary Moore, he was also making excavations in the same area, in the same layer, the red crack and the layers below. And he found, I mean, a huge collection of particular stone implements, and also at one point he actually found a complete human skeleton near Ipswich, in these layers which are like 1.5 million, 2 million years old mainly. And these discoveries caused a great discussion, stir and controversy in the archaeological society in the beginning of the 20th century. We're talking about the 1920s and 30s. And, but they were accepted by a lot of scientists actually. For example, here is Henry Fairfield Osborne. He was actually the director of the American Museum of Natural History in, I believe that's in New York, is it? Or it's America's biggest museum of natural history. He was a director of that. He was the 20s and 30s leading paleoanthropologist in America. So he was a really big top scientist in those days. And he wrote in 1921, the discoveries that gave more of evidence of the existence of Pliocene man in East Anglia open a new epoch in archaeology. They bring indubitable evidence of the existence of man in southeast Britain, man of sufficient intelligence to fashion flints and to build fire before the close of the Pliocene. And the Pliocene is ended 2 million years ago. So he says actually there's clear proof, indubitable evidence that there was someone who was able to work with flint and use fire in the Pliocene in England at least 2 million years ago. So again, top scientists like that in the 1920s concluding that. And many other top archaeologists, they accepted these findings. But again, there were a lot of also, who were trying to disprove them, debunk them, criticize them because they completely contradicted the current ideas about human origins. But there's a huge body of, some very big collection made by over many years by this J.W. Moore.
How do you explain with in the Vedas they said that people were actually quite advanced at that time and that they used like stone?
There has been probably all kinds of humans on all kinds of levels of civilization for any time. Just like even today, although they become rare, but there are still people living on the Stone Age level on this planet, isn't it? In Amazonas and places like that. So they live as, you have people living as primitive and people living as very advanced. And the point is, these archaeologists, they're looking for primitive people, so that's what they're finding. They're not looking for advanced civilizations. Maybe there's more evidence. Actually, there's some evidence, not discussed, not very much in forbidden archaeology, but there's some examples of what can be, it's indicative of very advanced civilization millions of years ago also. And then again, what will be left of advanced civilizations millions of years from now, for example, of our civilization? Will computers be there? Will the plastic, will that still there be some millions of years from now? Will actually, if you look in this room here, what will be left? Basically just the stones. This is stone. That might be left. Basically, stone is the only thing that lasts for millions of years.
Deities?
Yeah, metal, no. Bronze, of course, are eternal. But metal, except gold. Gold doesn't deteriorate. Other metals, some and other, like iron, rust, or some, metals, some and other are being degraded by time. So metals, no, they don't last millions of years.
Couldn't it also be a point that very advanced human beings, they don't necessarily leave a lot of junk behind them? They just have the nice.
Yeah, they don't drop their garbage everywhere. So, but I mean,
and also
but they leave some evidence. If they have big buildings, even of course the most advanced, they're the great sages. They just meditate and have nothing. And they leave their body, and when they leave the body self-combusts. I mean, they just burns. They leave through the skull, and the body just bursts in flames. So what can you expect to find of them? And
very hygienic.
that's very
What about the ancient buildings and?
Yeah, I mean that's I mean. I say that in Forbidden Archaeology, there's some examples of some very ancient structures found also, but very few. First of all, that's not really the thrust of the Forbidden Archaeology as such, but also, again, a lot of these controversial discoveries at one point were accepted by some scientists. They were nevertheless primitive because these scientists were looking for primitive people. Generally, what you don't look for, you don't find, but what you look for is generally also what you find if it can be found at all. So that could be one reason why it mainly was primitive.
There's a lot of examples of findings of human beings from all over the world, but what about India? Wouldn't that be?
Yeah.
Important?
I don't have any examples from India here. This is from all over the world. India, in one sense, is archaeologically somewhat like a virgin place. I mean, of course, in the last decades, the Indians themselves are doing a lot of archaeological survey, but not like places. Actually, Denmark is a place that has been one of the most excavated places on the planet in terms of archaeology. Actually, archaeology started in Denmark. It was the first world famous or founder of archaeology was a Dane actually. And there's been a lot of archaeological excavations just here and in Europe in general like that. Also some parts of the world actually not very much. And India is one of those places that has not been excavated a whole lot really. But still something has been found. I mean, in the Forbidden Archaeology, there's one example from India of some stone tools, which are very old. And maybe someone found them, it's just that, Tutankhamun's and Buddha didn't come across it, but it might have been found also. There's much more than what they found.
I think I heard it in Radio Krishna at one point that they found melted glass in layers that were like a couple of minutes. And the way this glass was melted is exactly the same way as if you blow up an atomic bomb.
I'm sure it was million, it wasn't just some 5,000 years back, corresponding to the Battle of Kurukshetra or something like that.
Could be also.
Could be, yeah.
Anyway, it was like atomic...
Yeah. So, you find things that are much more far out than what has been discussed here. This is kind of standard archaeology, just very old. If we go back now to Argentina, we discussed the skull found in Buenos Aires. And as I said, Florentina Maggi